This podcast is not meant to be professional advice of any kind. It is meant to be informative and entertaining. If you make any changes to your life, see the appropriate professional before you do so. Hello and welcome to Super Age. My name is David Harry Stewart. I'm the founder of Ageist. At Super Age, we help you live better and become the best version of yourself. And who doesn't want a Super Age? Hey everybody, welcome to episode 100 of the Super Age podcast. This will be dropping on September the 7th, 2022. Today's show is brought to you by Inside Tracker, the dashboard to your inner health. Go to insidetracker.com/Ageist, save 20% on all their products. So today, as we're working on the show, here in Park City, Utah, it was up to 95 today, which is actually like really hot for here. And, you know, in places of California, it was a lot warmer than that. Which, that's happened sometimes this time of year, early September. But, what's sort of caught my attention is that more and more I'm hearing people that I think are pretty sane, friends of mine, acquaintances that I know, talking about moving because of climate change. And this is the first I've been hearing of this. And I actually know people who've done exactly that, who've left, Los Angeles, places out in the desert in California, because they're concerned about climate change and about water. So, I don't know what to say. I just wanted to bring that up and say, like, I'm hearing this. People are not only talking about it, they're like taking action on it. So I don't know how much of that we're going to see in the future. Maybe we'll see a lot of that, maybe not. Hard to say. But, in any case, winter will be coming soon to at least where I live. It tends to get very cold here in the winter, and I don't expect that that'll be much different this year. And on the topic of cold, we're going to be talking all about exactly that today, cold. And what I mean by that, and we're going to use this as sort of an overall umbrella term today, which is cold therapy. And cold therapy, I would say, is the willful exposure to cold, be it cold water, a cold cryo tank, or something else in that flavor, to get some kind of therapeutic effect. And in my conversations with people out there in the world of wellness and health span and stuff, outside of the sort of normal things that we think of. So you want to get good sleep, absolutely essential. Make sure exercise, you're eating the right things, you have a de-stressing program. But outside of those, if we talk into like a therapy, this cold exposure is always right up there. It's up there with sauna, and it's up there with some of the other things that we talk about. But it's a very potent therapy, can be very effective for a lot of things. I have a good friend of mine who has a pretty severe case of osteoarthritis, and she was, munching down a lot of ibuprofen every day to get through the day. And I introduced her to one form of cold therapy, which is cryotherapy. And cryotherapy is a tank with very cold air of some kind, either air or liquid nitrogen. I prefer the air variety that's the whole body. I think it's a little safer. So she does that now once a week, and she has been pain-free for months. No more ibuprofen. This is all she does, and it's like completely transformed her life. And as we're going to talk about on the podcast today, there are other forms of cold therapy. The kind that I like myself is exposure to cold water. That seems to work better for me, but everybody's different, and what I want to do today is just have a discussion with our guest, Jono James, and talk about, what's happened with him. He had a very serious childhood illness that he has managed through cold, and just full disclosure, Jono also owns a cedar tank, an ice tank company in Australia. But we're not really going to talk about that too much. I want to talk to him about his experience with cold and some of my experience with cold, and to just introduce all of you out there that although this might seem really extreme and kind of crazy, it's really not. And if you do it once, you'll understand why it works so well. So we're going to get with Jono James in just a moment after a quick word from our sponsor. Today's show is brought to you by Inside Tracker. Inside Tracker is the dashboard to your inner health. Just as a car has a dashboard so you can tell how fast you're going and how much gas you have, you need a dashboard for your inner health. You need to know what's going on inside your body if you're going to optimize it. You need some way to monitor what's going on inside your body. And then once you know what's going on inside your body, you need some way to help optimize that. This is what I get from Inside Tracker. With their 43 biomarkers that they're testing, along with the genetics that they test me for, I know what I should be eating to really optimize where I want to be. And I get to choose that target of where I want to be. Am I working on brain health? Am I working on longevity? Is there something with my fitness that I'm interested in optimizing? The app will make recommendations personalized to me based on my blood work and my genetics. And that's something that I just think is invaluable. It's not a replacement for seeing my doctor. It's not a replacement for any of the other professionals in my life. It is an additive, but it is an additive that is with me every day, all day. And I can consult it and I can see what should I be doing right now. And then I can test again and see what changes have happened. If you go to insidetracker.com/ageist, you'll save 20% on all their products. Hey, Jono, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, man. What time is it where you are? And where are you and what time is it?
So I'm on the Gold Coast in Australia and it's 7 a.m. here. So I just woke up. So
I'm sorry.
If I'm a bit slow to answer questions, that's why.
I'm sorry. It's 3 p.m. here where I am. But so we're going to talk about cold today. And you're somebody who knows a lot about cold therapy. Why don't you give me your background? How did you get interested in cold?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess if we want to answer that question fully, we'll have to go way back to the beginning. And basically, I was born with a condition called cystic fibrosis. And for those that aren't familiar, it's a condition that affects the lungs, liver, pancreas, and digestive system. And it's actually a really serious condition. Like I was given probably 10 years to live when I was born. And the doctors were like, don't try anything alternative. It's not going to work. Don't get too attached. And thankfully, my parents ignored that advice. And my mum, my mum made it her full-time job looking after me and trying to find anything and everything that could help. And yeah, so she went through. She just this is before the internet was widely spread. So she would go to the local library. She would download journal articles and then print them out and take them home and read them. And she just left no stone unturned. And she managed to get me through to teenagehood very healthy. And then it just became a natural interest of mine. And so when I remember in high school, I would go home and read journal articles on the internet when all the other kids were watching cartoons. So it just became a natural interest of mine. And things just kind of took off from there. I ended up becoming a certified nutritionist. And so I've always had this sort of desire and interest in the human body and health and nutrition and our environment and mindset and all that. And naturally that progressed to finding different therapies that weren't really being talked about. And one of those therapies was cold therapy and contrast therapy. And yeah, so that's how I was kind of introduced to the whole thing. And it's been just incredible for my health. I'm not saying it's cured my condition or anything, but it's one of those things that it's a weapon in the arsenal against my condition. So
did you start with were you finding things in the literature around the benefits of cold therapy and cold? I mean, plunging into cold water, I'm guessing, is what people were doing.
Yes, exactly. Well, it's funny. I started with a sauna, actually. That's how I got into this whole thing. And I bought a sauna online, sight unseen, didn't know if it worked, didn't know how big it was, didn't know if it disassembled, didn't even know where it was going to go. And as soon as I bought it, I'm like, oh my God, that's the stupidest thing I've ever done. And and then I ended up getting it to my house. I could figure out where it would go, and it actually did work, and I've used it ever since. And then I discovered that I really enjoyed going from really, really hot to really, really cold. And then I looked into ice baths, and then it's funny because that's my introduction. I didn't actually go into the literature until after I started doing it, and then when I did go into the literature, I found there's just so many benefits. There's a myriad of things that helps by it, and the research is getting stronger and stronger every day.
So let's say I want to back this up a little bit. So what possessed you first to buy this sauna, and what did you? It's a regular, not an infrared, like a regular one, traditional.
No, it actually is an infrared one, and
okay.
Yeah, so I the reason I bought it is because I really enjoyed saunas as just as an experience, and I did know a fair bit about I guess you call it heat therapy. I'm not sure what you call it actually, but I did know a fair bit about the benefits of a sauna, and so that's why I've always, my entire life has been about finding that little bit more of an edge than I had yesterday on my condition, and so
Right.
I bought it. I bought it for that, and things just naturally progress from there.
So, talk to me about it's a certain kind of person who decides to get themselves into an ice bath without people do it not so much commonly now, but I mean I do it, but there's a lot of other people out there that I sort of followed that was like, okay, this works. What got you to go from sauna to the ice bath, and what kind of ice thing were you doing initially?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess it was just I just discovered that I really enjoyed going from hot to cold, and I thought, okay, yeah,
that's a weird thing, man. I want to tell you, I do it. It's not it's not enjoyable. It's shocking.
Yeah, well, it sounds crazy if you really think about it, and a lot of people look at me like, you voluntarily get into freezing cold water, which is fair enough. You get some odd looks, but I guess it's the feeling you get. I quite enjoy the feeling as it's happening, but a lot of people don't actually enjoy it, but you enjoy it afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like you just, you get out, you feel like you're Superman, you're really happy.
Absolutely.
And you also, there's also the psychological side of it. You feel like the way I look at it is that it builds resilience. Like if you're able to control yourself and your physiological reaction to something when you're in a fair amount of discomfort, as you are in an ice bath, then if something else in your life happens that you are not entirely in control of, you're going to have a more sort of measured and sort of controlled response to that. So it builds resilience in that way as well.
Absolutely. I've had a sort of a range of experiences with this, and the most extreme is that I live in Park City, Utah, and the winter it's cold. And we have a sauna in our gym, which is like traditional sauna, and it's meant. I don't know how hot it is. I can tell you that I brought a meat thermometer in there, and it's one of the ones with like the probe, and then there's like a plastic part of the end. I put the whole thing in there, and at 186 degrees, the thing broke. So I don't know. I don't know what the temperature is, but it's higher than that. And so we would, so what we do is we go in there for like 20 minutes, and then we go out, and it'll be like 15 degrees. And one of the pools out there, they don't heat. So we break it with a barbell and then go in. But that's the air's like 15 and the water's probably 33, 34. And I think I can do like a minute. And then my hands and feet just hurt too much to get out. But that's the most extreme version of this sort of thing that I've done. But I do experience exactly what you said is once I get out, I feel like Superman, like all the adrenaline, the neuroadrenaline, all these chemicals are going through me, and my brain is just lit up. Like I feel super smart. I'm not any smarter, but I feel smarter, So talk to me a little bit about the, what are you seeing? It's helped your condition.
Yes.
And then, so what has been your personal effect from doing the cold and the contrast therapy from the heat to the cold?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, um, it's just a there's just a whole range of things. Like I feel like I'm getting sick less often, and my lungs are clearer. And I seem to be able to maintain my physique a lot easier. Like I don't. I've recently started a business, and I haven't been able to exercise at all, but I do sauna every day, and
Mm-hmm.
I've been able to sort of keep muscular mass with just the sauna. And so there's that side, and there's also the mental health benefits of it. Like I find that I'm in general a happier person, a less anxious person, and I'm trying to think of anything else I benefit from it. Mainly those things, yeah.
So before they had serotonin uptake inhibitors, the sort of SSRI drugs.
Yeah.
So before they developed those, the only cure they had for people with depression was cold. And like in the early, I guess it was the early 20th century, you would go to a place, like a mental health clinic, a sanatorium, and they would put you in cold water. And then people would come out and they would feel much happier that it does that. So that's also, that's why, I mean, in the morning I take a cold shower because I feel awesome after.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I actually had no idea about that. It's fun. It's funny how knowledgeable. Like we look back at people like 1,000 years ago or more, and we kind of assume that they weren't as smart as us, but they figured out a fair amount of things that are now being validated by science.
That's right. It was cold water was the original antidepressant, and it works really well. So some of the other things that let's talk about the different sort of varieties of cold therapy. So there's the sort of basic. People get a horse trough, they fill it with water, they put some ice in it, and then they get in it. There's some people that are a little more adventuresome, and they take a freezer and they turn it sideways. They fill it full of water. If you're going to do this at home, unplug the freezer before you get in the thing, or you have a very bad outcome. And you don't want to do that. And then there's the sort of tubs you get in, where I did one on Saturday. So that was 40 degrees Fahrenheit water, and it's flowing around your body. And that's really impactful, I have to say. And then there's then there are cryo chambers, and there are two flavors of those. There's the head out, so there's nitrogen down below, and there's the whole body, which is chilled air, and those are like minus 220. So I mean, what I've seen is I know people who've had pretty dramatic benefits from the cold. And what are the sort of things outside of, you have a very specific condition, but for people who have other sort of reasons, like why would someone else want to go into cold besides they just want to get really high when they get out of the cold?
Well, you have to be a little bit on the crazy side, I guess. That's a requirement. I've had people come to me and they say that, like, I've got a customer of mine who has incredibly bad back pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was from an injury, and he says the only time I'm not in pain is when I'm in the ice bath. And I've had so many people reach out and say, for my pain condition, the ice bath really helps. And so that's one. And then the other is mental health. Like, there's so many people with anxiety and depression these days, and most people seem to find that they get a lot of benefit from the ice baths from that, and just all sorts of things, really. Like there's just a huge list of things that people use the ice bath for, and it's growing every day, and people really swear by it. And even things that science hasn't really validated yet. But at the same time, that's kind of how that's how scientists come up with their hypothesis. They look at what's happening, and then they go and put it in a clinical trial, and then they validate it. So yeah.
I have a friend who has osteoarthritis, and she was taking fistfuls of ibuprofen every day to get through the day. She doesn't do that anymore. She goes into a cryo tank once a week. Done. No more pain. I have friends. I'm 63. I have a number of friends my age whose biggest complaint about the summer is they can't get into the frozen pool anymore. And they hurt all the time because they can't go in the frozen pool. But if they go in the frozen pool, they come out and they feel fine. And my understanding of the science of this is, you probably know this better than I do, but what happens is all the blood pools into your organs to keep your body, to keep them alive in your brain. And then when you get out, there's a reflex response. And then all the blood flows out into areas where it's sometimes difficult to get to. So your bones, your tendons, joints, places like that. So the blood rushes in there, bringing nutrients and relief. And then people feel better. Like I feel better when I do something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think there's a number of ways that it works on the body. I think it's on top of that, it's another thing like it's a positive stress on the body, and it's a stress that kind of challenges the body to get better. That's similar to exercise, for instance. Like when you exercise, the body goes, oh, I'm not actually good enough how I am now. You're putting me under a bit of pressure. I need to build muscle mass and become better and stronger. So I think, that's another aspect of how cold therapy works to improve health.
Yes, it's a hormetic stress, and
yes, exactly.
That's exactly the way calorie deprivation works, exercise works, sauna, the heat works, cold, same deal. All very basic hormetic stress response stuff that's really great for the body. I'm a big fan of, total comfort leads to total decay. Put a little discomfort in your life and your body will adapt and you're going to live longer. It's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, we need to treat the body like we did, 10,000 years ago or more. The body is not designed to sit around on a comfy couch.
Right.
It's supposed to be challenged. It's supposed to be a tool for foraging and hunting and things like that. So the more we separate ourselves from the ways we used to do things, the less good our health becomes.
And for everyone out there who thinks that we're crazy for doing this, there's no you're not going to be injured. It's just and in my experience, really in any of these. So if I go in, I have to say, 50 degrees circulating cold water, not so bad. I can do that for like 5 minutes. That's no big deal. 40 starts to get my hand, especially because I go to my neck. So my hands and my feet start to, after 2 or 3 minutes, it's like, that that hurts. But there's no like permanent damage. You're like, fine. It's just the initial sort of shock that you've done this to yourself. And then 20 seconds later, your body's like, okay, we got this. We can manage this. We have systems to like deal with this.
Yes, exactly. Well, that's the thing. The first 20 seconds, they're the hardest. Yeah. And once you get over that, you're still not comfortable, you're exactly as you said. You get over the initial shock, and then you're in there. And then if you concentrate on your breathing, then it becomes a lot easier. And you can even put yourself in a kind of mini trance, and just concentrate on your breathing, and get through it that way. And so a lot of people say that so for me, the limiting factor for me is as you described, my hands and feet.
Yeah.
And so what I started doing is I would wear wetsuit booties and wetsuit gloves, and that way, because I can stay in there probably 3 or 4 times longer with just my body if my hands and feet are covered. And so what I've done is I've slowly taken those off, and then kind of adapted my hands and feet to the cold. And that's because that way it was limiting the amount of time I could spend in there, because it literally felt like I was being stabbed with knives the entire time.
Yeah. Right.
So
that's exactly right. That's once the stabbing knife thing starts, I'm out. That's like, okay, I've had enough of that. So you mentioned breathing, and there's sort of 2 schools of thought on this. There's the Wim Hof variety, which is the sort of hyper oxygenation, hyperventilating sort of way to do it. And then there are other people who are, it's almost the opposite. They're like, no, you just want to increase the carbon dioxide in your body so that you become very calm. You slow your heart rate down rather than amping it up. Which one do you do?
I kind of do both, if I'm honest. Like I've experimented with the Wim Hof method, and it's amazing, but it kind of depends on my mood, I guess. I think a big part of that is just taking your attention away from the cold. And so I think so it might be a bit of a placebo effect, either one.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that the Wim Hof method's been pretty extensively tested scientifically, but yeah, I do find if you're concentrating on your breathing and you're just really sort of meditating on that, then less of your attention is on the cold water.
I find that when I get into the crazy cold, like the ice in the pool, I do the Wim Hof probably just to like exactly what you're saying, to just distract myself. I'm not sure that it really makes a difference, but it makes me feel like I'm doing something about this really uncomfortable environment that I'm in. But when I do if I do a cryo tank or I do like a tub, then I've gotten to, I can really slow my breathing down and try and relax as much as possible.
Yes,
I guess it depends. What you mentioned, you're a nutritionist. Is there a relationship between food and the cold? So do you eat something? Do you before or after? Is there any sort of interaction there, or does it not matter?
I haven't actually looked into that, to be honest. I think if you ate a crap ton of spicy food, you'd be begging for the cold water. But apart from that, not that I'm aware of.
I find that both both the sauna, like the really hot one that I go to, and the cold tends to really jack my metabolism. So I know if I do, a couple of two or three rounds of contrast therapy, I just can't wait to eat. Like I feel like my metabolism like through the roof, and I can't wait to eat. The first thing that enters my mind is, what am I eating? Like, where's the nearest place I get some food right now? Because I'm starving. And I've heard this about people who do the cold, that it really increases their metabolism, and it turns, I don't know if this is true, their white fat, which is the fat that we don't want, tends to turn to brown fat, which is the good fat that we want. And I've actually find the people who do, our travel editor is a cold water swimmer. Like she swims year round in the North Atlantic. And she's really thin, and she says it's all about like, doing that. Have you ever heard anything about that?
Yeah, I have actually. Yeah. And you're spot on with that. Like cold exposure increases brown fat. And and when you're in cold, especially cold water, your body has to fire up and basically counteract the cold that you're in. So it has to produce all of this energy, this heat energy, to counteract it. And that's kind of directly linked to the metabolism. So you end up burning more calories at the same time.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I the other thing with the contrast therapy, what I find is if I do like 3 rounds of it, by the third one, the cold becomes much more impactful. It takes me a long time to warm up. And I did this on Saturday, 2 days ago. I think it was about 105 here. And I drove for an hour with the windows open and the seat warmer on, to like, because I just get like the core at that point, like the core of my body is just so cold. It takes a while to warm up. I mean, do you have that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the mechanism behind that is so basically when you're you're heating up your core body temperature in the sauna, and then you're dropping it down in the ice bath. But each time you do that into the ice bath, you're dropping it a little bit more. And then when you go into the sauna, you elevate it a bit, but because you're so hot in there, you don't actually notice that your core temperature is lower than it was before. And then so with the last time you do it, and you get out, that's when your core body temperature is as low as it will go, and that's probably why it takes you longer to heat up again.
I've actually read somewhere that if you do not contrast therapy, but if you say go swimming somewhere cold, and you get out of the water, your body will so that all the blood goes into reverse, right? So it all goes into your extremities, like warm the body up. But you got to make sure that you're in a place that's warm, because otherwise you'll go into hypothermia. Not so much from the cold water, but from coming out, that reflex reaction of the blood going out and all the capillaries opening up. You got to make sure, like my friend, my travel editor, she says, like, that's the worst part, is getting from the water to the warm place. You got to do that really quickly. Bad stuff happens. Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about, some of the things that, we talked about mood, and I know osteoarthritis. I know for myself, my joint and muscle aches get dramatically better from the cold. And I'll tell you a story. You'll like this, Jono. So I'm in the sauna, and the sauna we have here is very social, not in a weird way. It's just sort of like people chat. And because I live in Park City, the U.S. Olympic team trains here. And in the summer, a lot of the runners are here, the long distance people who are, if you've ever been around Olympians, they're just like not normal people. Like the guy next to me, I was like, so what's your resting heart rate? 32. Like, what?
Crazy.
How is that even possible? So I said, so talking about the cold, and they all, like, as soon as I said the cold, they had just lit up. They're like, oh, we love the cold. We love the cold. But they won't let them go in the cold when they're training, because they want their bodies to adapt to the sort of uncomfortability of recovery. But whenever they're in any kind of a meet, any sort of a competition, the first thing they do after they get off the track is immediately in an ice bath, because they're going to have to run again. They're going to have to compete again in a day or two. So, yeah, that's what those guys do. Yeah,
you're definitely right. Athletes, professional athletes, they're just very, they're just built differently. The recovery benefits of ice baths are pretty good. Although I think it was Andrew Huberman, the doctor, he was saying that if you use an ice bath after exercise, it actually hinders muscle growth. So he actually recommends, he actually recommends using it beforehand, which is a bit counterintuitive, but apparently that's what the science says.
Yeah, I would dispute him on both of those points. I think he's a clever guy. There's a lot of things he says that I personally wouldn't do. I think that the science on the reduction of hypertrophy from cold, I don't know, kind of dodgy on that. But then, whatever. I'm not looking to become, the next Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I just want to like walk comfortably through my day. That's where I'm at.
Well, so sometimes, like, a lot of these studies, they're done on, like, sort of hyper athletes who need that extra 1%, and the typical person needs that extra 10%, and we're never ever going to need that. So it might have been like muscle growth was limited by 1 gram a day or something like that. And you're like, okay, well, that's not relevant to me.
No, it's not relevant to me either. And I what is relevant to me is, how sore am I? How much do my joints hurt? How much do my muscles hurt? And what level of recovery have I achieved, so that I can do this again tomorrow or the day after? That's what's important to me. And I mean, truthfully, if I had access to cold, I would do it every day. The only cold, I have shower here, and in the winter here, I have water out of the shower is like, it's cold.
Well, that's a really good point you make, because something like that would escape the attention of a clinical, like a trial, right? So they might find that the cold actually does hinder muscle growth. But at the same time, if you take into account the fact that you can exercise more often because you're well recovered, then it could be a net gain. So so that's an interesting point.
And I think that with there's a lot of data on sauna, because sauna, traditional sauna, is really easy to calibrate. It's, here's the room, here's the temperature, here's how many times, here's how, here's the amount of time they're in there. This is what happens. Cold, I think, is a lot harder to calibrate, because you've got the different sort of, is the water moving? Is it not moving? What's the temperature? How long are the people in? What are they doing before? What are they doing after? And I found there's less info on this, other than you talk to people and once they get over the shock of doing it, I think addiction is a pretty good word for it. Like, people are just like, I think about it all the time, John. Like, I just think, like, when can I go back in the cold tub?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because like I've spoken to a fair few people like this, and like some people are like, oh, this is just the new health craze, it's going to go away, and but when you talk to people, I think the proportion of people who just fall in love with it immediately relative to those that try it is just really, really high. And like more so than like spin class or yoga or whatever it may be. Like people just, like I know people like, they're like, this is a need. This is not a want. This is a need in my life. Like, I need this to get to start the day or get through life. So
yeah, I mean, I know people who, if they have to, they need to do something really, really high cognitive level. So they have to go out in front of some people and give a talk. They have to like analyze a paper or something. And for preparation, what they do is they go into a cold tank, and they'll go into a cold bath for like 4 or 5 minutes, and it like fires all these chemicals in their brain, and they're like, okay, game on, we can do this now.
Yeah. Well, that's really good. I haven't actually thought about that. I'll do that before I do anything like that. Then for
sure. Super interesting. And so, are you finding that? Like, I don't know anybody. I actually know one woman in Seattle who has her own cold tub, but in general, the whole cold thing tends to be more like you go to a facility that has a cold place that you can do it. Like, a lot of people have hot tubs, right? Like, that's sort of a common thing, like a hot tub. You have a backyard jacuzzi or something. But when I ask people about this, like, oh, you're going to get a cold tub, they just look at me like I'm out of my mind. But I don't know. Tony Robbins has one. I don't know, whatever you think of Tony Robbins, but he does every morning. He gets in his cold tub.
Yeah, well, he's kind of at the forefront of all those things that help the human body. It's becoming far more common these days to have a sauna and or ice bath. And it's just this huge movement now that's going on in the health and wellness industry. Like, everyone wants to get access to a cold tub or like most people start, like, as you say, they use a stock trough or something, they fill it with ice, and then the step up from that is the chest freezer. A lot of people use chest freezers, but one of the issues with that is that, one, you absolutely have to turn it off before you get in, because it's not fully grounded and certainly not designed for a human being to be in there. And they do tend to, eventually the water leaks through and then it rusts them and you got to just throw the thing out. And then the step up from that again is like a bespoke solution. I guess I could give myself a shameless plug here. I run a company called Odin Ice Baths, and we make a cedar ice bath, which is a true ice bath in that it actually produces ice around the sides of it, unlike a cold plunge, which just provides just cold water. And
so tell me, I want to know the metric on this. What temperature is the water inside your tub?
Well, it gets down to we produce ice. So, I mean, if the entire thing was 32 degrees, then it would be a block of ice. But having said that, we did purposely make it so it could be filled with you could put magnesium in the water. So some people have been doing that and getting it below freezing. So
that's
below
insane.
32 degrees.
Oh my
Yes.
God. Oh my God. That's like 38, 40 is sort of like, that's good. That's good for me. Like I've only been in that, here at like whatever it is, like 33. And that's just, I'm not as strong as you, man. I don't know.
Well, you say that, but I'm more, it's funny because I run an ice bath company, but I'm more sort of comfortable at, well, that might be a bit of an oxymoron, but I'm more comfortable at sort of 4 to 6 degrees Celsius. I'm not sure exactly the conversion of that, but I think it's
like
one of those
40.
It's one of those things that you're better off having it and not needing it than needing it and not having it. And everyone with their sort of cold therapy journey, you never know where you're going to end up. And like a lot of people like pushing themselves, and so it's good to have that option to be able to go as low as that. And it's also a cool party trick to actually produce ice in an ice bath at home.
Okay. And so what's your protocol? Like, how long do you go in for? How many times a week? What are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's very much dictated by my work schedule, but in an ideal world, I do sauna every day, and so I'll jump in there for 20, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, depending on how I'm feeling. I'll really push myself in there. And then I'll jump from that to the ice bath. I'll keep the ice bath between 4 and 6 degrees, also based on how I'm feeling. And then I'll stay in there for about 4 minutes. And then I'll jump out of that and jump into the sauna, and then I'll do about 30 minutes of that, and then I'll go back into the ice bath, and I'll generally do that about 3 times. And afterwards at the time you feel great, and afterwards you feel even better. And you just feel like Superman.
I can vouch for that. It's true.
You just have to try it, and you just got to see. And you'll know after the first time you do it. You'll feel pretty damn good. So I'm 35 now, and I was given 10 years to live when I was born, more or less. Yeah. And most people look at me; they don't think there's anything wrong with me. Like I'm arguably healthier than the typical person, and that comes down to me just trying everything. It's quite interesting. If you ever go and read a scientific journal article, you'll see maybe there's 30 participants, maybe there's 100. Mm-hmm. And if you track their results from whatever the intervention may be, you'll see the scatter plot. And on the left hand side, you've got people who are non-responders. Mm-hmm. So they had no effect from it, and then you've got people on the right that are hyper responders. Mm-hmm. And they just got tremendous benefits from it. And I'm a big believer in the fact that all of us are hyper responders to some things and non-responders to others. And so it's just a matter of trying everything you can think of, assuming it has a somewhat scientific basis. And at some point you'll find something that you're a hyper responder to. And I really believe that a lot of people are hyper responders to the cold therapy. And that's how I've stayed so well. I've just treated myself like a one-person clinical trial, and I've tried things over and over again, and eventually I found a select few things that really, really, really helped me. And but I'm still searching for things, and each time I do find something, I give myself a bit more of an edge, and I prolong my life a bit more.
As I say a lot, like, we're all N of one, and you just sort of have to take responsibility for who you are and how your body reacts to different things, because what works for me may or may not work for you. And the only way you're going to know that is to just try it. And as long as it's not, injurious, try things out, see what happens.
Absolutely. Well, the number one rule is don't hurt yourself, do no harm. And everything else is open, just give it a go. There's literally nothing to lose. And if it doesn't work, you come out with a story. Like, remember that time I voluntarily got in freezing cold water?
Right. I will. One of the things that just comes to mind with this is if someone has a cardiac condition or thinks they have a cardiac condition, you probably want to check with your cardiologist before you do something like, get into like really cold water.
Yes. I think just it's always a good idea to run everything past the doctor. But it's interesting. Right. Like a friend of mine has a heart condition. Like it's an anxiety-induced heart condition. I can't really exactly remember the name of it, but I was talking to her about her trying cold therapy, and she's like, oh, I don't know about that. I feel like my heart will go crazy. And so I did some research on it, and it turns out splashing cold water in someone's face with that heart condition was actually a treatment to calming the heart. So it was just really interesting. It was just really interesting that it had that effect on that condition.
I just for other people who are curious about trying this, what I have read is that if this sounds like a lot to do right off the bat, you can start with you go to the sink and just wash your face with cold water, and then sort of get a little more, like put it on your whole head, and then maybe you turn the shower down a little bit. And I'll just my experience with cold showers they are the most painful. They're worse actually than the tub, because the tub, you put your whole body and your body's like, okay, this is what this is our new situation. We're going to adapt to this. With the shower, as you rotate, like you're just constantly changing the parts of your skin, and so there's no adaptation. So, but you can start with just like the cold water in your face and then try it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, like anything really, like you want to ease yourself into it.
Yeah.
A lot of people who buy my ice bath are like health clubs and things like that, and they say, what temperature do you like? Should we put it on? And I say, well, kind of depends on how seasoned the people are who are getting in it. If you put it at 0 degrees Celsius or 32, then you're probably going to scare a fair few people away. They'll probably still enjoy it, but it might just be too intense. And so I kind of suggest, exactly as you say, you want to start at 10 degrees. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but yeah, you want to ease into it, and you want to go at your own pace and at your own comfort levels, and just ramp it up each time.
That's right. Jono, it's been great having you on the call today. Thank you for getting up early. I know you mentioned you're not a morning person. You've done an excellent job at faking it as a morning person. We appreciate this.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Take care now.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everyone, for joining us on the show today. And just a quick disclaimer, we don't dispense medical advice on this show. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I know a lot of them. We have them on the show. But any of this things that we talk about here, you really want to check with your doctor and make sure that any of these things that we're talking about, they're safe and they're appropriate for you to do. If you enjoyed the show today, and I hope you did, I really encourage everyone, go out there and try some cold therapy. I know a lot of you are like, oh my God, I can't do that. It's kind of great, and it's not nearly as uncomfortable as it seems. But in any case, you have the opportunity to leave us up to a 5-star review, and I would really appreciate that. And the only way that we grow this podcast is all of you share this with maybe a friend or two. So if you can do that, that would be wonderful. Next week on the show, we're going to be talking about nitric oxide, which sounds really obtuse and odd. But I think for all of you out there whose hands and feet get cold in the winter, I know we're back on the cold theme again, but I have some interesting information for you that I think would be very helpful for you this winter. So check it out next week. Until then, everyone, have a wonderful week, and we'll see you then. Take care.